Okay, and what we'll do now is, so the slides is also, so this slide that we just did and also the one I'm putting up together now, they're both on the GitHub page, and I put them into different lectures. So we're gonna start with this one. It's not really like lecture 2, but like topic 2, or topic 1, with orientation is topic 0, how to think about disclosure risk in microdata. So this will link to what you have done or before this. So we're here from your talks, but I will set up the overall background first, and then we can think about what we can do. All right. So this is the sample. Yeah. I should mention. I said we're on page 4 of lecture 2.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
I had
okay.
I had gotten down to like page 15 when we were talking about the ACS data. So thank you.
Okay. Yeah. So we're on page 4. Yeah. So yeah, I'll read the I guess the title of each page now, so you can maybe figure out which one is it. So we're on microdata and the ACS sample.
Perfect.
Okay, so microdata is also called record level data or respondent level data. We've been talking about it, and that's what the ACS is. And it's a collection of a number of variables, attributes for a survey of individuals or business establishments. So what we're working on is individuals, like people. Okay, but there are also business establishment surveys that is talking, like is collecting information about, I guess, what is it, like cash flow, whatever, all of any information that I can think of for business establishment. So they're still microdata because they're still at the micro level, okay? But it's just different subject. For ACS, it's individual people. So sometimes you may also see not just a unit is as a household, but not as a person. They're all kinds, but they're all regarded or considered as record level data or microdata. Okay. And I guess I just should mention. What is opposed to microdata is what people call tabular data. Tabular data is, especially with categorical data, so instead of releasing the data for each person, they just release a table. Like say, I'm looking at like that. Instead of giving everybody's gender, race, and marital status, just say there's 3 variables. Instead of giving like that information for everybody, I want to protect them, so instead of giving the individuals, I'm giving a table of counts. Like say cross tabulation, like yeah. So in this case, let's see. Yeah. So here, yeah. So we're at the table now about the data, the variable, and each variable and its information. So earlier I was saying what race, gender, and marital status, right? So there are 2 categories here. There are 6 categories here, right? And then there are 5. Yeah. So instead of releasing each person's sex, race, and marital status as a data frame that I'm releasing, for one protection, people might want us to return or report counts of cross tabulations here. So you have 2 times 6 times 5, which is 60 different combinations of the 3 variables, right? So let's say we have 10,000 people. That's what the ACS, the sample that we're working with. So instead of giving you a 10,000 by 3 table, that is microdata, tabular data is, well, I'm just like counting how many observations in each of the 60 categories or cross categories, and then I release count instead of microdata. Okay? So that, many people work on that, and for us, I just thought, well, in Bayesian statistics, of course, but also just in many other contexts you probably have encountered before, we usually work with microdata. Like if you want to run any kind of regression analysis, if you only give me a table, I have nothing to do, right? Or, well, let me maybe take that back. If it's only about the 3 variables, and you give me a table like this, like say 60 or like 60 by 1, whatever, you can actually reconstruct the like the microdata from the table, right? Because I know there are, like, say, 10 people of 1, 1, 1, and 20 people of 2, 2, 2 of that combination. So you could, yeah. let me take that back. But still, my main interest, and also just I think based on what we all know so far from Bayesian statistics, is probably the best to work with microdata, and that's what people usually want to get access to instead of to. Okay, so that's what we do. And also, for example, if I actually have 10 variables of each person, but I'm only able to release a table about the count of this combinations, then I'm losing information about all of the rest. Right? So that would be another reason I would say why you might want to work with microdata or protection methods for microdata instead of protecting. So that's all right. So this is yeah. So we're back on page 4 now, and this is just load the data. You can have your other ways to do this, and then just take a look at the first 6 records. And I recoded the data so that they're all just like categorical, showing the categories. But just so you know, when you go online to find data sets, they might not be presented in this way. Okay, you might want to do the clean. But given what you think is the most sensible, you feel free to do it. For me, or for this purpose, I'm just trying to present it that you can see that they're all categories. And this page 5 is what the information is for each of the variables. So they're all categorical. I think now we know that. And so when this sample is released to the public, you think of potential disclosure risk for all of the individuals in the survey sample. And earlier I mentioned that for any public available data like the ACS, they're already like being protected. Okay? So we already not working with the confidential data, unfortunately. But let's suppose that's the original, and it's about 10,000 people in a particular region, about 10 attributes or variables of these 10 people. Can you think of potential disclosure risks for all of the individuals in the survey? I guess we're already hinting to this, not only with the to-do list that I provided, but also just from the discussion. So maybe let me just jump to the 2 types of disclosures and disclosure risks. And the one that I've been talking about, which we will see soon, is what we call identification disclosure. That we are trying to identify somebody in the survey. So the way that we did it, oh, sorry, let me just cover a couple more terminology beforehand. So disclosure, let's just define it as disclosing sensitive information of individual, or collection of individuals. So sensitive information, I guess we talked about it earlier. Disability, especially for the ACS survey, could be one, and place of birth, and then like in other surveys, geographic information, and also for income, all that, those can be information, sensitive information, disclosure of that. Yeah, disclosing information like that will be a disclosure. And then the risks associated with the disclosures, we call them disclosure risks. So is an intruder or attacker, whoever you want to define it, use public available database to derive confidential information about individuals who are in the data. Let me slow down here a little bit. Disclosure is disclosing sensitive information. But the risks, we define them to be, well, if any bad guy out there are trying to find something that is actually not directly public available, but you can derive based on what you have, like identity, like what we were trying to talk about just now, that will be disclosure risk. Okay? And later you will see a different type of disclosure. But we're going to start with identification disclosure, because I think that is the most intuitive in some sense, that if you know some information about a person, you want to find out who that person is in the survey or in the sample. And to be sure, I think in many statistical agencies, before they release their data, identification disclosure is indeed one of the main things that they care about, because they don't want to disclose any of the identity. Okay? So we're going to focus on that. So this was the example that I think I gave in the to-do list. Sex 1, race 1, marital status 1 in the public available ACS sample. What additional information about your neighbor can you learn? So what did you do? Anybody willing to share what you did? And one thing we could do, I mean, especially let's say with Isaac, who's already logged in, so we can share his screen easily. But I can also, okay, let me pause here for a second. Yeah, so when you know your neighbor, just 3 variables of your neighbor. In this case, I think it's a white male, a white married male, okay, given the information. So what additional information about your neighbor can you learn? You start first.
Okay.
Yeah, so let me.
I will.
Okay, give me a second. Let me stop sharing here. And Isaac, can you share your screen?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I will pull up. Sorry, I have a million Word documents open, and it's giving me the option of which screen to share.
Right.
And
So
it's a little.
yours is a PDF, so maybe that can help you find out which one that is.
Where is it? It's just a matter of finding it in the.
All right. So let's look at what Isaac did. Yeah. All right. So I'm on page 1 now. Isaac, do you want to start from here or?
Yeah, sure. So the first one was just like white male married was what we knew of the neighbor. So like just off like back of the envelope type stuff. That gets you down to a little over 2,000 candidates who could be your neighbor in the data set.
Right. So that's can you tell me which page? Oh, okay. So can you tell me on your
page 2?
Page 2?
Yeah, section 1.
Okay, yeah. All right. So Isaac's document here is saying that there are 2192 entries of people sharing the info. Okay, so what will we do from here if we want to find out who your neighbor is in this sample?
Yeah, so then the first thing I did just kind of get a sense for the data, like since it was categorical, just plot the counts within this subset. And that's where a lot of imbalance, I guess, particularly country of other birth, that sort of thing. So if you're thinking from the perspective of an intruder, like maybe those are the people you want to target and like steal their social securities. I don't know.
I see. So that's the.
So that was.
Is the plot on page 3, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So what Isaac is saying here, I think he plotted. Yeah, there are histograms here, but they're trying. Yeah, I think this is showing which are the categories that are like very little occupied, and then those will be. I think what Isaac earlier was saying that like the like imbalanced categories, and then if you know anybody like say in that category, and then even with just that variable or with 1 or 2 additional ones, that will uniquely define somebody pretty easily. Okay. All right, we can keep going. Which page do you want me to go?
We can just, I guess, keep going down, and like the second analysis is pretty much the same as the first one, except it's a little bit more. It just shows the data is a little more granular. So then the next thing I did was just counts for each, I guess, possible permutation of answer.
Yeah. So can you tell me which page is that?
Right between 3 at the top of 4.
Okay, between 3 and top of 4. Okay. All right. So we're here. Go ahead.
And so the important takeaway from here is that most people, this row with 1,380, most people within this subset answered similarly. So again, if you're an intruder, like you're targeting or the identifiable people are going to be a really small subset of the population, which I guess perhaps it's harder to find them in real life, but easier to find them in the data set. So there's that. If you keep scrolling down to the next table at the bottom of page 4, so I guess the full table didn't print, but what I did is I wrote a function and it just took every combination of column, and those combinations represented the extra variables you could possibly know.
Yeah.
And then folded the data on those to say, like, are there certain people for whom knowledge of these columns exposes them in the data set. So the full table didn't print in the markdown, but like if you go to row 8, you know that there's one person whose answer to location of birth and speaks another language. If you knew those two things would reveal them. And that's not to say that like you're guaranteed if you knew those two categories to out someone, but there's someone who could be outed by those. So the point of that was just say like, all right, where would you, if you're an intruder, kind of start picking at next? And then, you know, once you have that, like if you know education and if you know that if you go to the table kind of midway through page 5, that's showing that, again, it's just kind of combinatoric folding of the data. Like if you know someone with WAOB2 and category is 3, that plus the starting information you have, you can find them in the data set. So I guess I wasn't so much answering your question as like, can you definitively find them, but what is the minimum threshold at which people start to become identifiable in the data?
I think that's a great strategy. So I think everybody in the first place found out about 2192 people sharing the 3 combinations, right? So I would say if you don't know anything more about your neighbor now, if I want to find out who that person is, I might just run the guess around this, like amount is 2192 people. So my chance of doing that, like getting it correctly, is 1 divided by that count, right? It's not really large at this moment. The count is large, but the probability is low. And what Isaac has been doing, I think, with all of these tables, I will share that. I will post it on GitHub if some of you are curious about the functions and the code that he wrote. Pretty much, I think he was trying to like go further to see, like say, with the 3, I don't have a high chance. But what if I know a little bit more? Okay. And then also, which will be the variables that will be most useful for me if I know one more, which one I should know, that I can increase my chance the most to find out who's the person. Okay, so I think that is like a natural thing to do, obviously. And that could be a way, say if you can find one variable that can help you a lot, then that might be a sensitive variable that you want to know. Okay, so again, sensitive information or sensitive variable can be defined in many different ways, and some of them are intuitive, some of them are very sample specific. And I would say for this case is for this particular neighbor, like your neighbor, white, male, married combination, then you can even provide a more specific variable of sensitivity that you want to make sure that you want to do that. Isaac, anything else? Keep going.
Yeah, so then kind of the last, I don't know, strategy. I also want to see, perhaps you could learn like who is not in the data.
Yeah.
So if classes weren't represented, I made like in the scenario you had, you know, you were iffy on whether someone was in the data set. And another thing would be like, all right, let's try to rule them out of the data set. Like maybe we know where they were born from knowing them. And what I found is that you can't actually, within this subset or subset you gave us, you can't really rule out the possibility of other classes. Although that said, I didn't do that to count. I didn't rule out permutations of other classes. So I guess that's one place I could have gone further.
Yeah, so I didn't count like how many levels for each variable there are, but we do have 10, right? So in theory, if you multiply the 10, like the levels for each of the variable, like you multiply all of them together, that product is going to give you how many possible combinations are out there, right? And that number usually will be way larger than the sample size. So that's why, not surprisingly, some of the combinations not even go up to 10, maybe just 5. Some of the 5 will, like say, you pick 5, and then even with that 5, certain combination might not exist in the sample. So that will be, well, for us, I guess, not directly related to how we can evaluate the risk of the people that we do know exist. It does provide us some thinking of, well, if you're dealing with categorical data with many variables, many categorical variables, And then if you think about cross tabulation, inevitably you're going to get somebody either not existing in the sample or existing with very high probability, meaning that they might be the only one or the only two or the only three. And then that will be a way to think about, well, that could be a high disclosure risk, especially for the unique person. Nothing else you can do. We know exactly who the person is, and then that will lead to any like knowing about the other information about this person. Okay. All right, thank you, Isaac. So I'm going to stop sharing here. Henrik, do you want to share or have something to add?
Yeah, I had pretty much the same thing, but I actually have a question.
Sure.
Can knowing like certain characteristics actually like mislead the intruder, and let's say like the data like doesn't update as frequently, and if you were to like, for example, look at like the school variable, and like they just like recently started graduate school or something, or like or like they were like recently divorced, is that something that if the intruder knew or like knew like their current state, but because the data set isn't updated that frequently, they would be able to find out. Like,
yeah, great question. What do you all think? So Henrik is saying that. Make sure that we have this. Yeah. So Henrik's question is, well, let's see. So data. Well, this say for this case, the ACS sample that we have, I think, is from a particular year. So it's fixed. It just for that time point. Right? And well, first of all, we have to sort of make the assumption that we know our neighbor is in the sample, whether that is true or not. We'll have to figure out. But say a conservative guess is that he is in the sample, because if it's not, then we don't even have any risk for this person, right? But then what we mean by conservative is we assume that this person is in, so it's a non-zero risk, and we're trying to find the highest possible value. So that would be the worst case scenario. But then, of course, things change, and then this is at a particular time point. And for variables like what Henrik was suggesting, like this one, school, right? Is this one, right? Yeah, 3 categories. As not attending school in the last 3 months, in public school or college, or in private school, college, or homeschool. So people's status or categories of this variables like this might change dramatically. Right? I mean, even just from one year to another, or even just from, I guess, 1 month to another, I don't know. So yeah, so if you, so indeed, if you think about it, I think if you have a wrong impression, or if you have a wrong information to start with, and you're trying to use that to like do some kind of matching and then find out the identity, I guess you're deemed to lose for sure. Yeah. One thing I will mention is for our purpose, if we are the person we're saying that we can use Bayesian data synthesis methods to help you protect your data, then we sort of have to make the assumption that from our point of view, we know the truth, right? And we also need to, we need to give the worst case scenario, right? In a sense that, like you said, if the person already switched from 1 to 2 category for school, so maybe if you wrongly know that the person is still 1, then from the intruder point of view, you have no chance of finding it, right? But that is a lucky thing, like the worst thing for the intruder, but the lucky thing for the data provider. But from our point of view, I would argue that we want to make sure that we give the worst or like the highest risk, which is the case that we're still going to assume that, well, that person is that. But yeah, so right now, what I've been asking you all to do is, well, suppose the data that we have is confidential, right? And then we're trying to see, well, for certain combinations, some people are more risky, some people are less. But in truth, like say, it's more important to realize that, well, for us, we don't even know for the microdata, the ACS sample that we get is already protected. Okay, we don't even know the truth in first. Okay, so any kind of risks that I was talking about, like say 1 divided by 2192, that number that I was saying, if I just want to do a random guess of which of the 2192 people is my neighbor, I can just do a random guess, right? But I don't know if it's true or not. And for the intruder point of view, he would never know if it's true, right? He can just make his best guess, and then that's it. But from our point of view, if we assume that the ACS sample that we have is the truth, then we are able to evaluate if it is a truth. Okay. Am I confusing you all? I'm saying that all of the stuff that we're trying to like decipher and trying to figure out now is sort of only can be done whether whether it's a true match or not, only if we actually know which one is real. But the intruder would never know. But from the data disseminator or the statistical agency point of view, we're like from the other side trying to give protection to this. And then we need to make sure that we know it for sure, and then we can evaluate whether it is a match. But for the intruder, we never know. Okay? So the intruder, that they were just doing their best guess. But from our point of view, we want to provide any kind of data release, maybe through synthetic data, maybe through some other mechanisms, that we can make sure that we are reducing the risk of commercial. Alright, so let me just, I guess, for the identification risk, yeah, so this is what I did. I didn't do as fancy as what Isaac did. I was just looking at how many observations there are for this particular neighbor set, that's how I call it, and random guessing. And in particular, in this case, if I'm doing a random guess and I'm doing 1 divided by that number, 2192, I can quantify my risk as a probability. Okay? But you might have other ways of quantifying risk. For now, if I do it this way, it is a probability. Later, you can think about what kind of way you want to do. And important to know here, that's what I was saying earlier, we actually do not possess the true identity. So only the data holder will be able to evaluate or declare an identification disclosure. So that's good to know and keep in mind. And all right, so I think everybody has the laptop with you. So I'm just going to throw out the 3 exercises. And I'm just saying that on top of sex 1, race 1, and marital status 1, what if, yeah, so I was thinking about place of birth as well. So for exercise 1, if you know this additional information, how many records is going to be fewer, right? Fewer than 2192. So how many do you have? And in that case, how likely it is for you to find out the identity? That's the first exercise. Second one is, well, second one, I think Isaac sort of helped us answer that. If you're allowed to know about only one more variable or attribute in the survey, which one will increase your chance the most to identify the leader? Earlier, I think Isaac, yeah, we can hear from him again that he wrote a function and trying to produce, like, say, what would be the next variable we should know in order to have a higher chance or have the highest chance to find out. And that is pretty much, I guess, in some sense, trying to look at the cross tabulations of all the variables. And the last one is, I was just playing with it and I found a unique observation with this 5 variable or attribute values here: sex 1, race 5, marital status 3, language speaking 1, and place of birth 3. My question for you is, what can you learn about her? So I'm going to pause here for a little bit. You can play with your code and the sample code. I mean, you can download the, you can look at the slides that I posted on GitHub. So you can play with that. And I think let's just focus on 1 and 3, because 2 I think would take a little bit more time. But I think we now know like what the goal of number 2 is, and it could be open-ended and could be very, I mean, sample specific. So, but let's focus on 1 and 3, so we're on the same page. Okay, so let's spend a few minutes on this. All right, anybody number 1? What is the count? How many records once you add that WAOE?
2058.
2058? 2058? Right? Everybody? Okay. Yeah, so I guess that didn't like decrease much from 2192, right? Because I guess WAOB is US and Puerto Rico, right? Level. So maybe if you choose a different category of that WAOB, the number will drop like a little bit more. So that means that for that combination is less likely. Okay? But as of now, it's I guess 1 over 29, 2084.
Sorry, 2015.
Oh, 2015. 2015, yeah, so it's one over that. Okay. And what about number 3 here? This is a unique observation, so I guess if you actually look at this combination, you'll uniquely determine who that person is in that survey. So I actually have it here for you, a printout of that particular record down here. Okay? So what can you learn about her now? What do you think?
Pretty much everything, right?
Mm-hmm. But anything in the survey, yeah. So it's yeah, disability status, healthcare coverage status, immigration status, school, and then Hispanic, right? So pretty much everything. And then when we say pretty much everything, especially now, we not only know about who the person is, we get to know about the other attribute value. And that is what we typically call the second type of disclosure as attribute disclosure. Okay, so that's why I'm trying to use this unique observation example to lead us to it. So in addition to the identity, we know which person it is, but really, like once we know which person that your neighbor is, you were probably not going to just get to know the other information. And so identification disclosure and attribute disclosure, they're linked to some degree, especially in this case, knowing the identity of this person leads to the sensitive status. Oh, sorry, the sensitive information of the other variable. Okay? So, but how about for somebody who is not uniquely identified? Say your neighbor with earlier sex 1, race 1, and marital status 1. We know they're 2192 people, right, in that group. What if we want to find out about this person's sensitive disability status? What would you do? So this is what we call type 2 attribute. And if now I know it's going to be one of the 2192 people, intuitively, what would you like? What can you do if you want to find out about his DIS status? What do you think? If I really want to find out what it is, what would be your strategy? Pause here for a little bit. And yeah, there's no like right answer or like a one fixed answer. You can be creative about what you do. And what I would say is DIS is a binary variable in this case, 2 categories. Yes, disability or no without disability. So wonder if that can help you in some way to guess or find out about his sensitive DIS status.
Disclosure.
Mm-hmm.
Are you required to declare one if you realize that there could have been one, in which case you might like alert people to it, or only if someone actually got hold of it?
You're saying that, like, what do you mean by declaring a attribute disclosure?
Yeah, so on slide 12, you have the thing on the Census Bureau, for example, declaring an attribute disclosure.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I would assume there are like reporting requirements there. But say, I don't know, like someone in your office realizes like person Y could have been identified in the data. I mean, you don't know if like they were hacked or targeted as a result of it.
Right.
You still have to, I mean, I'm assuming you have to notify them, but in the same way it'd be like a medical disclosure. But what are the reporting requirements for tracing like whether they actually were identified or they were just possible to be identified?
Right, yeah, so Isaac is talking about slide 12, which is, well, what I was proposing, one simple strategy is, well, you can check the breakdown of the disability status of the 2192, it's 2192 typo, and then you can see, well, with disability 1 is much less likely, right? I mean, just the breakdown itself. And you can randomly guess if you want, if I really want to find out about it, and most likely it's going to be disability people who choose for that person, right? But similar to what we were talking about, so this is related to Isaac's question, similar to what we were talking about earlier about that identification disclosure, that we, again, do not actually possess the information. We don't know the neighbor's DIS value, And only the data holder in this case, ACS, is collected and published by the U.S. Census Bureau. So for them, they actually know which person. So first of all, which person, like which record belongs to who, and then also given that, what are the other sensitive information like DIS and many other things. So Isaac's question is, well, do we have a rule saying when and how we can declare attribute disclosure? So I wouldn't know exactly, I guess, the correct answer to that question. In my mind, usually what I think of declaring or how to declare mostly is whenever people are trying to, or agencies are trying to release their data, whenever they're trying to do some kind of adding noise or whatever they do for the privacy protection, they want to make sure that they cover, I would say, like the worst case scenario. And so for one thing we can think of is, well, we might want to make sure that we have enough risk protection, meaning that maybe everybody's disclosure risk level is low at some threshold. Only at that point we are able to release the data in some sense. So that is actually one type of guidelines that I think statistical agencies follow when they're trying to determine, first of all, what kind of methods they should use for privacy protection, and second of all, well, once those methods are applied, how am I know I'm doing following that, right? So I encourage you all actually just to go to US Census Bureau website to see what their guidelines are. They typically release this kind of information. And it could be very survey specific, and maybe like the rule applies to the American Community Survey, can only be applied to like this type of survey, like say individuals or like person to people type survey like ACS usually has very different characteristics compared to business establishment. So that will be like, I don't think there is a fixed rule for all of them. There is no one rule for all of them, but it can be very case specific. Okay? So this is just, I mean, an example. I mean, it might not be the best way to move forward. But if I really desperately want to know about my neighbor's disability status, if I only know him for the sex, marital status, and race, then I can probably just randomly guess between 1 and 2 for DIS. But of course, I would guess based on this 339 and 1853 instead of like 50 or any other change. This is exactly what the data is telling me. I know he's one of this 2192 people, and I know the breakdown of disabilities like that. That might be my best. All right. So okay, quickly a summary here. So later in the semester, we'll learn more formally how to evaluate disclosure risks. Right now, we're just setting the stage to give you an idea of what we care about. And the methods we cover, just what we're talking about just now, actually, as you notice, make the intruder's knowledge and safety. What we mean by this is, well, I need to assume that I know my neighbors, first of all, in the survey. And second of all, I have to assume that I know 3 attributes or variables about him, which is sex, race, and or marital status, right? So imagine that we do not only do this for our neighbor, but we do that for all of the 10,000 people in the survey. And let's say we come up with some kind of disclosure risk measurement, and maybe they're under some threshold, so we feel comfortable releasing. But you notice that all of the disclosure risks, like evaluation, all of the outcomes and the entire process, heavily depends on how much you assume the intruder knows. Okay? Just as we saw earlier, with sex, race, and marital status, if we now just add WAOB, the whole thing changed. Okay? So a natural question, I mean, whole thing changed, meaning, well, now I have a different set of disclosure risk measures. Which one should I trust? How much can I assume the intruder knows? So this is, I think, one of the main drawbacks of thinking about disclosure risk in this way, that even though it's intuitive, and that's probably what people would do in real life, if that's all I have, but it does rely on very heavily the assumptions of what the intruder would do. Okay? So there are other methods out there, which I should mention is mostly developed by computer scientists. And they're doing, so hopefully by the end, close to the end of the semester, what they're doing is they do not make, they claim they do not make any assumptions about what the intruder knows. They're always thinking about the worst case scenario. Okay? But what they mean by worst case scenario is like, say, if I have two databases, X and Y, I have my big X here and big Y. They're databases. They're like 10,000 bytes. The databases. And we want to add noise to the database that we want to protect under the constraint that if my X, which is the truth, I'm thinking about all of the Y's, which is the same dimension, but different only by one record, which is what they call like the very strong assumption. I mean, it's assumption, but not about the intruder behavior. It's about like, I only have one different value or record between X and Y. I can still, I will add my noise to the confidential data proportional to that change, and then making sure that even though I only have one record difference, I can still not differentiate between X and Y. That's the gist of it. Like I have X and Y, they're only different by one record. Maybe it's the entire record. Maybe it's just some values of one record is different. And I will need to make sure that I add my noise to my confidential data, let's say Y. Oh, sorry, X in this case. And once I add the noise according to that rule, I cannot differentiate between X and Y. So there are many like math behind and then trying to make all of things work. But these methods, they do not make those assumptions that we do when we're thinking about this one year study. That's what we work at, like assume what the intruder knows. But intuitively, you can imagine that, well, if X and Y are so close to each other, like say, then I will have to add like larger noise to the data. And maybe they're not that close, even though they're only different by one record, depends on which one you're different and all that. Then you will have like smaller noise. So there's a different, I mean, this is still in the big field of data privacy protection, but there are methods out there that they do not make those assumptions. What they call is formal privacy guarantee. Okay? They make sure that you cannot differentiate between two databases after you add those noise. Okay? And they're only different by one record, something like that. All right. So, okay.